Here's a neat trick I got from an ad in a magazine for a popular TV show. With the TV show's got Mr. Donald Trump in it, so you can probably guess which one it is. But it had a person that was enclosed, but there was no person there, so it was kind of ghosted, if you will. And I just thought it was a neat thing to try to recreate here. I tell you what, you'll learn a ton about cloning and brushing and gradients and things to kind of help make something like this a little bit more realistic. So let's start off here. Just double click on the background layer, click OK, and that turns it into a regular layer. And I'm going to zoom in on just the hand down here. It's going to probably be the hardest part. All right, and I'm going to take my clone stamp tool and make sure I have all layers selected up in the top layers palette here. And let's create a blank layer to work on, because that means that we can kind of keep it all separate. And the first thing that I'm going to do is just take my quick selection tool and let's just select as much of the hand as we can here and hit the backspace or delete key and delete it. And then we'll click on that blank layer here and use that clone stamp tool. And what we want to do is just fill in as much of this area as we can. So just going to do some pretty large brush strokes at first, and then we'll kind of hone in and clean it up in a second here. Okay. And then let's go up here and try to get some of the pocket area, knock my brush size down, and just try to continue as much of that area down as we can. It doesn't have to be all the way down, but just try to continue some of it. And let's take some of the fold from the jacket and try to continue that upward a little bit. All right. And we're not going to go all the way to the sleeve. And you'll see why in just a moment here. We don't have to go all the way to the sleeve because we're going to start to fill that in. Okay, and that looks pretty good. You can go in here and you can clone in and kind of clean some of that up. But honestly, folks, you're really not going to see it in the final image here. It's not something that we're going to be concentrating on. So you can try to go in and clone out. Here, I'll do it really quick. There's just one area that's bothering me. There we go. So that kind of looks a little bit better. Now, what I'm going to do here is grab my elliptical marquee tool and just make a elliptical selection. And let's zoom in again on that area here. And if you right click inside the selection and choose transform selection, you can move this guy around, you can rotate it, and what I'm going to do is just put it right over the sleeve. Okay, maybe even make it a little thinner. Alright, and then you can rotate it around some more if you have to. Alright, and that looks pretty good. Back out a little bit, and now I'm going to take a brand new layer here, just create a brand new blank layer, take my gradient tool and just use the default black to white gradient and just drag it straight across here. Okay, I'm going to deselect and let's back out here and take a look. So that is a start, but it's not quite what we're looking for. First of all, I can use the move tool and I can reposition it around if I need to. Okay, but it still just looks a little bit too fakey, so I grabbed the burn tool and I just came down here and I just kind of burned it in a little bit. Okay, just to kind of darken it up. Okay, and that looks a lot better. Now let's go over and take a look at the other hand here. Zoom in, and this one's going to be really easy. I'm just going to go on the original background layer. And in fact, one of the things you can do to help kind of keep this organized, click on one layer, shift click on the other, and just Command or Control E, merge them all together. Now let's take the brush tool here. I'm going to go on my background layer here, and all I'm going to do is just paint over that with black. Okay, we don't need any detail here. This is going to be hidden inside of that sleeve, so I can get away with just painting it over and just plain black. Okay, not always. You might have to use the same technique that I used on the other side to just grab a black and white gradient and fill it in with that. Make sure you do it on its own layer, and that way you can kind of blend it in. But I think for this example, just painting it over with black works just fine. Let's back out and take a look. All right, good. So we got rid of his hands. Now let's get rid of his head. All right. First, we'll take the lasso tool, and I'll start off here and just try to lasso as much of it as I can. Okay. And I'm going to sample the background color here with the eyedropper tool, and then I'm just going to fill it in with that background color. I know there's edges around here. We're going to take care of that last. And then the next thing I'll do here is take my brush with that same background color. And you've got a couple options here. Personally, you could try to recreate the collar going all the way around, and personally, it gets a little bit too scary when you just see no head there. So it's okay to have it look a little bit odd that there's no collar there, because kind of people settle in and know that it's fake. But when you have absolutely no head there, it kind of looks a little too scary for me. So all the ones I practiced with, I wound up just going this route. Okay, and just kind of paint in the background. All right, and again, we're going to take care of the lines and the things that don't quite match up for the background. And don't forget to use your left and right bracket keys here, and that'll just get in there. And resize the brush. But one more time here, a little too much, just get along the edge. And there we go. Okay, and then I can get rid of this little spot over here too. All right, looking good. And now the last thing that we need to do here, and I mentioned it earlier, so before I move on, let me just show you, you can put a little bit of a ghosted neck back there, maybe try to drop the opacity, not of the original background layer, but go to this layer here, maybe just create a shape inside there, put a little ghosted area, but honestly, I think it looks fine without it. The last thing that I would do here is just grab my patch tool and just go along any of these spots here, and just select it with the patch tool, anything with a line, okay, and just get rid of it. All right, so as you can see, as I go through this, I mean, we're using a lot of cool techniques, all right, and the idea is just to try to make this look a little bit more realistic, and how can we go about doing that? So even if you don't find yourself taking the person and making them a ghost, the techniques that you use really work well for lots of different circumstances here. And there's one more line I want to get rid of. Okay, so that's one way to get rid of some of those seams inside the background. And let me go ahead here, turn on some text, and that's basically the context in which I saw this in. It was an ad. Again, it was for one of those popular TV shows, and it had Donald Trump in it, and just kind of showed you, the idea was like, this could be you, insert person here, and that was the same thing I carried over to this. So hope you enjoyed, folks, and we'll see you again next time.